Hey everybody, good morning. How y'all doing today? Happy Sunday, everybody. Welcome, welcome, welcome. I want you to come on in and I want us to have a conversation, right? A discussion. Now, for the longest, I have not shown a picture of Bryan Kohberger. The reason I didn't show a picture of Bryan Kohberger on my page or in these videos is because he is not convicted. He is a suspect. Now, from the beginning, I've never expressed certain thoughts to you guys. I could really go into like a lot of detail about some of my stance in the videos, but I don't really try to do that because I'm not trying to gain anyone to change their thoughts. I am just presenting information relating to the case, things that I notice, things that I'm picking up, that I'm seeing. And a lot of this I've held back on because I really want the case to present itself and people can make their mind up. But as I've said in other videos, the case is really have an indefinite starting date for the trial. So it could be 2 months from now, 4 months from now, 6 months from now. That's a decent amount of time. Bryan Kohberger is looking at almost a year in prison when December comes around at the end of the year. So I'm going to start talking um, more specifically about the case, not just so much things that are out there. I'm going to present some more stuff. And honestly, it could appear that Bryan Kohberger may not be the assailant, or it could be multiple assailants. This is not to help the defense out, but I have to be honest. I have to be truthful. I have to be forthright. And I was kind of hoping the trial would start, even though I knew um, they just weren't prepared, the prosecutor or the defense, with so much evidence. They're still fighting in court for sharing the evidence. Some would say exculpatory evidence, things like that. You cannot start a trial and not be prepared, and not have your witnesses prepared for court. All of that has to happen, right? So knowing that, and knowing once the trial starts, it's not going to be like, hey, we're going to pause the trial so we can go and investigate more, seek out new, or a new possible witness. That's not really how it works. You have everything that's set before you, planned out. You have your witnesses lined up. You're sharing the information from prosecutor to defense team, so they're prepared, right? And neither side, honestly, they weren't prepared to start this trial October 2nd. Um, so I'm going to start talking more specifically about some things that I have seen. And I'm not going to say I've been holding back, but I really didn't want to talk about Bryan Kohberger or do a video on Bryan Kohberger so much because I feel like he has a right. I feel like there's been um, some things going on in the case, and I've said it in past videos that I do not agree with. I'm not expecting for the prosecution to lay their case out before me as a person that's discussing the case. I'm not expecting that at all. But I'm not going to sit here and act like I'm not seeing mistakes. I'm not seeing errors. I'm not seeing things that should never go on in the case, like the leakage of case details, the murder scene, the crime scene, witness statements. Like, this is not okay. This is actually something I'm going to do a separate video on, which is really a violation of due process. When you are stacking the deck before a trial against a defendant, you're stacking a deck in a way to taint a jury, taint a possible jury pool. Maybe they would even have to do a change of venue because so much leakage has happened in Idaho, across the entire country, really. Um, that's saying, hey, you got the suspect and he's guilty. But in all honesty, there's so many mistakes, so many flaws. I'm just going to have to start getting to it. Like, I feel the prosecutor um, has a responsibility, the judge has a responsibility, and the defense team has a responsibility. You have to protect a person's rights. You cannot do the things that's happening in this case. And attorneys know. Sometimes I'm watching commentary and I'm like, wow, they're overlooking these violations of his rights. Due process, due process. So I'm going to do a separate video on that and kind of speak more about that, because these leaks, they're getting worse. There's like a desperation to put the facts out on this case, and typically that is not how it works. You see facts at trial, and again, this trial may not happen until sometime next year, if that. So I'm going to move forward and do some more talking about Bryan Kohberger. And again, this is not against the families. I'm looking at this case and I'm always keeping in my mindset justice for all of the victims, including their families. And one part about justice is getting the right person, not just getting anybody, not just putting a case on somebody and throwing things to make it appear that they're the assailant. And I'm not saying they're doing this, but there has been a lot of information, a lot of leakage on the case. And I'm going to talk about that in a separate video. Today, I'm really here because I want to expose, I want to highlight something that I don't know if the general public really knows this, or like I said in the beginning, if you're not in law enforcement, if you have no law enforcement background, if you've never worked like murder scenes, crime scenes, or you have no policing experience, no medical experience, if you're not a nurse, if you haven't worked in a hospital or a medical examiner office, you may not know how things really, really happen. Um, I'm not going to even say that you're protected, but somewhat you are protected. You don't see gruesome pictures when someone is attacked. Even at trial, they don't show those pictures to the public. They don't show certain crime scene pictures. I think the most gruesome crime scene picture that was probably released was, I would think in the OJ trial, when they showed the exterior of the house and the walk up, the sidewalk with the blood on the ground. That was probably the most gruesome crime scene pictures. But I'm sure it was more disturbing, more violence that they're not going to show the public. They're going to shield and protect the public from these heinous crimes. And in this case, it hurts me in a way to talk about the case and the students, because, you know, they have families, they have siblings, they have their parents, people that really love them, that care about them, that grew up with them, that went to school with them. And I don't want to, my intention is not to cause any further harm, any further hurt. That is my intention. And it's hard because you try to have a balance and you try to consider the family. And my foremost thought is they deserve the truth. All of these families, they deserve to know the truth of what happened. And part of this video, I want to expose and highlight what I feel is something that you cannot deny. I put up a banner. I rarely put up a banner, right? I want you guys to think along with me. Come with me in my thought process as I'm sharing these. These are simple things, but a lot of people, they don't have this mindset that I have. They don't have the life experience. the jobs I've worked, things that I have done, and I'm trying to gradually bring you into this mindset. If you go back to the beginning. I'm sorry, I'm gonna stop my phone because it will go off, and I'm a busy girl, so excuse me, I'm a busy girl, so I might get a lot of interruptions. But if we go back to the beginning, let's go back. Let's think back. Let's recall. Let's go back to those videos and photographs of Bryan Kohberger. We all can do this. Friends, let's think logically, okay? This has nothing to do with the victims' families. This is not to dissuade you or change your opinion. This is only to show these are facts. You cannot deny this. And I want you to think about it. I want you to consider it, please. When Bryan Kohberger and his father were traveling in the vehicle, they were stopped 2 times. Let's think about that. 2 times in 10 minutes. Why? When you view the police body cam, you can see Bryan's face. Okay? Go back and watch that video, please. Refer back to that if you need to. Okay? Go back. Go back, please. This is why I have these pictures of Bryan up, okay? I put these pictures of Mr. Kohberger up because I've not ever posted a picture of him. In all of the videos, all of the times I've talked and referred to him slightly, I don't refer to him a lot. I always refer to the killer or killers. But this is more specifically today to just expose and highlight something that is a fact. This is not something that we have to wonder and consider and ponder. I tell you all the time, I'm pondering this and I'm pondering that. Today is not that. Today we're shooting straight from the hip. And this is a fact. And I want everybody to consider this. This is why I've highlighted this. If we go back at the time of arrest and those 2 known videos on the police cam, I want you guys to review that. But I also want the community there, any students, any staff that had encounters with Mr. Kohberger, that were maybe interacting with him, that lived in the apartment building where he lived, that was at the school, that was receiving any teacher assistant help, that ran across him, any video after the Idaho 4 murders, on the day of November 13th and forward. So remember, there is an acknowledgement that the same morning that Bryan Kohberger allegedly went to a store, there may be film. There may be film in that parking lot, and they may have film with him making his purchase in the store. Think with me. Think like me, okay? Give me a second. I'm going to build this out for you. If they have Mr. Kohberger, they're able to track his comings and goings in some instances immediately after or very close to the Idaho 4 murders. Can they enlarge any photographs? Can they stop and pause any video? Expand it out. I would like to see and know and be informed if any encounters close to the timing after the Idaho 4 murders, was there any wounds, any injuries, any scratches, any kind of cuts, tears, abrasions, any type of injuries that would be defensive wounds from an attack? Was there anything on his hands, on his palms, on the inside of his hands, on this side of his hands, on this side of his arms, that side of his arms, on his face, on his neck? Listen, family, listen, I need you to really get this. I'm telling you, no one is so unlikely. I'm not even sure how to put this in a way that's just crystal clear. It is highly unlikely that assailant, that an attacker, will be able to come out unscathed physically, unharmed physically in an attack with a knife. I know the police, the prosecutor, the media, they have all protected us from this knowledge of a lot of heinous crimes. I don't want to be gruesome. I don't want to be gruesome. When a person is attacked with a knife, what happens is defensive wounds. I told you in a video months ago, usually instinct is to protect. It's going to be to stop. Some people might try to run. But if someone is up close, it's hard to try to run and get away. I've told you, if you can, if you're in an incident, try to get away. Try to run. Try to go the opposite direction. Create separation. Try, fight for your life. Do not let the assailant take you. I've said that to you. Don't let them get you in a house, a car. Don't let them restrain you. In this instance, you guys, if Mr. Kohberger was the assailant, allegedly he was dressed in this Dickies jumpsuit, maybe had an additional layering of clothes underneath. Do you believe with your own determination that he would have been able to go inside of this property, whether he broke in or there was a window or door unlocked? This is all alleged now. This is just us talking and thinking things through and out. Do you believe he would be successful in going into this property, this 3-story property, with no cuts, no bruises, no abrasions, no scratches? 3 of the 4 victims were females. Do you think that? That's not what I'm here to talk about today. Let's talk about that. Let me give you some background for why I'm saying what I'm saying to you, not just my experience. I want to give you some background. I want to expose what the media, what society has tried to protect us, because they want us to be happy, right? They don't want us to live in fear. But these crimes in the dark, they are of evil. Of evil. So let's talk about it, okay? So, of course, On the Hidden Horror Facebook page, it's 2 links for today. 2 things that we're going to go over, and I want you to check them out. One that you have to check out because it was just too much to kind of post. So just follow that link, and it will have all of the information that we're going to go over. So let me describe to you what defensive wounds are if you don't know, okay? Or you may get more information from hearing this. A defensive wound or self defense wounds is an injury received by the victim of an attack while trying to defend against the assailant. Defensive wounds are often found on the hands and forearms where the victim has raised them to protect the head and face or to fend off an assault, but may also be present on the feet and legs where a victim attempts defense while lying down or kicking out at the assailant. The appearance and nature of the wound varies with the type of weapon used and the location of the injury and may present as a laceration, abrasion, contusion, or bone fracture. I didn't even want to go there. It's gruesome. It's, let me keep going. Let me just keep going. Where a victim has time to raise hands or arms before being shot by an assailant, the injury may also present as a gunshot wound. Severe laceration of the palmar surface of the hand or partial amputation of fingers may result from the victim grasping the blade of a weapon during an attack. In forensic pathology, the presence of defense wounds is highly indicative of homicide and also proves that the victim was, at least initially, conscious and able to offer some resistance during the attack. Defense wounds may be classified as active or passive. A victim of a knife attack, for example, would receive active defense wounds from grasping at the knife's blade and passive defense wounds on the back of the hand if it was raised up to protect the face. Now, we're going to go in further. We know from various statements that some of the victims, they fought back. Some of the victims had harsher injuries than others, but we have been informed that they fought back. What they're not really saying and translating that out is they have defensive wounds. That's what that means when they say someone fought back. Initially, we were told that the roommates were sleeping. However, when you listen to the things that have been said and have come out about the case, we know that that may not be the case. We know that certain victims had more extensive wounds, harsher wounds than others. That potentially, possibly, they were not asleep. They were able to respond, to lift their arms up. When you're sleeping, you don't really have any consciousness to ward off an attack because you're asleep. But when you're awake, you may see the assailant coming. You may hear the assailant coming. For example, if you're in the bed and the door is open, or if you're sitting in the bed or sitting in the chair and then an assailant comes into the room, it's going to get your attention. If you possibly see a knife, that may allow you some time to respond. And when I say respond, that may be trying to grab the knife, that may be trying to physically fight back. Now you have three females and a male. We know that the chances are not that great that the females would be able to stop a knife attack. However, when a person is awoke, they typically will have the ability to try to maybe grab the knife, maybe to try to grab the assailant, use their hands, try to protect themselves, cover their face, or physically fight, kick. When you kick, you're keeping separation. Maybe grab an object. Okay, let's go to the second article. Now, the second article, it was all about defensive wounds and the forensics of defensive wounds. It's a great article. However, the way it's laid out, you have to really click the link to follow it along, okay? So let's get to it. Defensive wounds are more often than not to be found on the hands of an individual who has been attacked or involved in a fight. And this article is by Jack Claridge, and it's on the site exploreforensics.co.uk. These wounds, which are normally to be found around the hands, fingers, and arms of the victim, and indeed sometimes the attacker, can be examined in order to determine how much of a struggle the victim put up and how much of a frenzy the attacker was in. So we know that there were two victims on the second floor and two victims on the third floor. I have to stop myself because typically I do not want to use their names. And this is not against the family, it has nothing to do with the family. It just helps desensitize it for me to talk like this. Okay. Many violent crimes tend to leave the victim's hands and arms covered in these defensive wounds, which can be made by the blade of a knife, biting or scratching and clawing perhaps at the ground in an attempt to get away. So what you typically see is you will see these cuts, these abrasions. I know they're not going to release these photos to the public. However, it helps them to determine who was woke and who was possibly asleep, because typically someone that is asleep will not have an opportunity to have defensive wounds. If someone is woke, even their positioning when they're found, you may be able to assess that they're woke because they may be in an area. For example, they may not be in a bed, they may be on the floor, they may be in a hallway. They're not going to be, even though this is early in the morning, right? Where this is a time where someone would be sleeping. That doesn't mean they're typically sleeping, right? It is possible if they're asleep, they're going to wake up, but it's unlikely that they would be able to emerge out of that bed once the attack starts. So the person that's awoke, they will tend to have the defensive wounds and they will be found in an area that will be possibly the floor or away from maybe a chair or the bed, for example, in this case where they're in a house. Okay, so again, This helps them determine whether the roommates and Ethan were asleep or woke, the positioning of where their body is, and if they have defensive wounds and the level of defensive wounds. You can determine somewhat if the knife is coming down and what degree sometimes. Okay, let's keep going. These violent crimes often include murder, assault, and sometimes even robbery, but for the most part, assault, and murder are the most common crimes to have defensive wounds. Defensive wounds, as we have said, are often to be found on the hands and arms, and this is because the victim will be trying to protect their face and upper body from attack by the assailant. This attack will normally take place at night in a darkly lit area, and the assailant will normally be carrying some kind of weapon. In the case of S-related crime, this is often a knife. We've been told that there was not a S assault amongst the three females. I'm trying to say this in a way. From reading the probable cause affidavit, we know that when Brett Payne was coming onto the second floor and Zaina's bedroom door either was open or Zaina was in the hallway, because he could see Zaina's body on the ground when he came onto the second floor. So either two things was happening. Either her bedroom door was open or she was in the hallway area of her bedroom, outside of her bedroom. Either way, this is indicative that Zaina potentially was awoke at the time of her attack. And it's also highly likely that she had defensive wounds. Now, with the autopsies, we probably will not hear a lot of details, but something that we should hear and possibly see a picture of is various defensive wounds that we will likely find out what are on her hands, upper body area, possibly face, maybe even her head. I don't know. But we should hear that. Now, I'm going to say it because it's just okay. When the police began to remove items out of the property 1122 King Road, one of the items that I actually looked closely at was the mattress from Zaina's room, from her bedroom. I want to say this. From viewing the mattress, I actually took a photograph of it. From viewing the mattress, the top mattress, you can see a you can see the indentation of blood. It appears the way that the blood is set on the mattress, it appears that possibly Ethan was laying down in the bed, because you can see the forming of a hand, a head, and then a body, the upper body. So I surmise from viewing that mattress and also connecting it to the probable cause affidavit, and this is my opinion, I believe that Zaina was possibly either in the hallway or in the entrance or close to the inside of her bedroom when she was attacked. Because of the blood on the mattress, I am guessing, just using common sense, that Ethan may have been laying in the bed. I'm not going to say he was asleep. I do not know. I'm sure if Zaina was initially attacked first in the room or near the room, this may have um, woken him up if he was laying down asleep. I'm just trying to put the events together in a common sense way. There has been different things put out there. One thing was that Ethan was against the door and they were not able to open the door to Zaina's bedroom. My thoughts on that, if Zaina was initially attacked first in the bedroom or right outside the bedroom, and her body is visible from coming onto the second floor, and if Ethan was in the bed and was initially attacked while lying down in the bed, I'm not going to say he was asleep, but something tells me that when the attack on Ethan started, this is maybe him waking up or rousing up, and the attack ensued. Now, for Ethan's body, if this is true, to end up leaning against that door to where they could not open Zaina's bedroom door, it may have been Ethan going to the floor and maybe leaning up against the door. Now, that could be possibly to keep anyone from coming into the room because the bed may have been against the wall because remember there was blood that was outside of the house. The blood had gone outside of the house, seeped outside of the house. And they know that that was new blood because they had pictures of the outside of the house from Halloween. So the blood was not there. And then the attack was November 13th. So they had pictures of the outside of the house where Zaina's bedroom was before the attack on Halloween. There was no blood there. So I'm trying to put it all together. But if Ethan was woken up or roused up or responding to Zaina being attacked first, he may have tried to get up to close the door, to shut the door. And unfortunately, they both passed away. You have to question, you have to consider if Maddie and Kaylee were unalived first on the third floor. We also consider the two alive roommates that they did not call 911 for help at the time of the attacks. There's a large time gap. If Zaina and Ethan were attacked second, Why did Zayna and Ethan not call 911 if they could hear the same thing that the alive roommate on the second floor was hearing? What were they doing? They're a couple, right? Was their door closed? They're saying that Zaina had a DoorDash delivery at approximately 4:05 a.m. Did she eat any of the food from the DoorDash? Did they eat any of the food from the DoorDash delivery? Was there any contents of food in their stomachs when they did the autopsy? Had they been drinking possibly that night? And that could kind of keep you a little bit slumber and slow. Were there any drugs involved? Was there a toxicology screen done that may help us understand if they were under any drugs or medication? These are all things that should come out at the trial. But my anticipation would be that both Ethan and Zaina had defensive wounds because Zaina is found as it appearing to be that she was woke. And we also know about the DoorDash delivery. And then Ethan being allegedly against the door. But I think initially he was lying in the bed. I'm not going to say he was asleep. Um, but the way that the pattern of blood is on the mattress, and you can go back and you can look at that mattress for yourself. And if you disagree with me, please tell me. Please put it in the comments. If you've seen any wounds, cut, scratches, anything on Mr. Kohberger, I didn't. That's why I have the pictures up. Look at his face, his neck, his arms. You can't really see his hands, but there's other, many, many pictures of him. I don't see any wounds. I don't see any scratches. Do you believe that that's even possible to attack 4 people, including a man? I believe that Ethan may have even been taller than Bryan Kohberger, but he was an athlete. He was strong. He was healthy. Do you even think that there was only one attacker? These are all things that we have to consider. But we should be keeping mindful that the victims, they're probably going to have a lot of defensive wounds, particularly in the upper body areas. Whereas we see all of these photographs, and we can even go further, right? We can ask the community, people that knew Bryan, people that would see Bryan on a daily basis from November 13th going forward to his arrest, when he showed up at school, at work, when he was at home, when he was out. We can implore the public to provide any pictures or videos of him. Did he have any injuries? Could they even have healed that fast? He's a very fair-skinned person. A scratch would appear on his face, his skin, marks. Even if it had healed, you would still see it. I wish I could show some of my scratches because I do a lot of home improvement. I have all kind of scratches and things. You would see something on him, right? Do you disagree? Do you disagree now? Please put it in the comments. Okay, let's keep going with this article. This is an excellent article. Please follow the link. I couldn't post everything. It was just so much. But let's keep going. Cuts to the hands and fingers are a surefire way of determining that the victim tried to defend themselves, and these cuts can be shallow or deep, long or short, and angled depending on how the assailant approached the victim. These cuts will also appear to be frenzied as though there is no reasoning behind them, and this is because, again, in particular, with a S motivated crime, the rush of adrenaline and excitement within the attacker is such that he will lash out without thinking and is simply trying to overpower his victim. Also, they can appear to be frenzied because the victim is moving. The victim is moving. The victim is fighting. The victim is trying to block, trying to evade this knife attack. So they're not going to be in a nice pattern. They could be cuts on the hands, cutting a finger, um, in the breast, in the chest, in the upper portion, in the head, in the face. Let's keep going. Of course, these frenzied attacks are not as common as the world media would have us believe, but they do happen, and when they do, they can be horrific. The perpetrator will also sometimes find his or herself on the receiving end and will have to defend themselves from attack, and just like the victim, will try to protect their face and upper body. Moreover, because the scratching of their face could leave vital DNA evidence in the form of skin fragments under the victim's fingernails. So we see Mr. Kohberger's face right in the background. We have to consider that with 4 victims being attacked, was there not any scratching? We see that Mr. Kohberger does not have any type of wounds. Do we really believe that the victims did not fight back? We've been told they have. So where is the wounds? Where is the scratches? Where's the injuries, the abrasions, the cuts, the scrapes? Any tearing of skin? Hopefully, when the autopsies of all the victims were done, they scraped everything under their nails for DNA. We're told that some of the victims fought back. They fought back against the vicious attack. We don't know how many stabbings each victim received, but we must acknowledge that with 4 people being attacked, it is not consistent with someone as an attacker not receiving any injuries. Do we believe that Mr. Kohberger is the assailant? Is there other assailants? Was this multiple people involved? Even with a jumpsuit of sorts, double clothing, you cannot protect that face. Holding a knife, a weapon, when you cut someone, that blood makes the blade, makes the handle very slippery. Even if you're wearing latex gloves, cloth gloves, like gardening gloves or leather gloves, is going to make that knife handle very slippery. Most assailants cut themselves in an attack. That's why I believe the K-bar was used, so there wouldn't be any slippage and the assailant's hand wouldn't go over the blade because it was so slippery. Was there more than one attacker? Because if Zaina is initially attacked, she's crying, she's screaming. Then Ethan potentially is attacked second. Is that blade on the knife in such a strength way that it's not going to bend? Or is there more than one knife? That's why I said we have to compare wound sizes. Is it a 1 inch knife? How long is the knife? Is the knife 3 inches, 5 inches? How deep does the wounds go in? How wide is the knife? Is there little cuts? Are there wide cuts? Is it a 1.5 inch blade? Is it a machete? Is it a regular, kitchen knife? It all matters. You have to compare the wounds from one victim to another. How deep is the wound? Does the wound penetrate through the body? Is that a longer knife? Do we have the right person? Investigate for yourself, right? Take this thought, take this opinion, and investigate for yourself. You consider it. Let's keep going. Again, it is important to remember that although at first glance these wounds might seem like nothing more than a last ditch attempt to save oneself from an attack, they are also important in the identification of a perpetrator should the attack be carried through to its conclusion. A forensic pathologist will look for these signs of self defense and will record them pictorially and will measure them, calculate their depth and distance, and will be able to construct a detailed analysis which will include the perpetrator's height, possibly his or her weight, direction he or she attacked from, and also what state of mind they was in at the time of the attack. All of these factors are very important when it comes to building a profile of an attacker or an S rate, excuse me, a serial R. Okay. Excellent article that's written with so much information that I want you to please go back and read it, review it for yourself. Think back, go back to when Mr. Kohberger was initially arrested. Go back to the videos of the two police stops. And then maybe law enforcement can also go back. Go back to the morning when he was shopping at that grocery store, the morning of the Idaho 4 murders. Did he have any wounds? Did he have any scratches? Because right now, honestly, Mr. Kohberger doesn't have a solid alibi. He was driving around, and you guys, law enforcement and the prosecutor, we all knew that, right? There's an Elantra on different surveillance video. We know that. That does not place him in the house. Now, that touch DNA on the sheath does have allegedly his touch DNA on the 3rd floor. However, with such a gruesome crime scene, so many victims, so much blood, it is hard for me to just accept that the knife sheath was there and it didn't have any blood. From what the coroner said, this was a very bloody crime scene. We could glean a little bit from some news coverage. We could see the blood leaking out, seeping out of the house. We could see the blood coming down on the walls. I saw that myself in like I believe it's like the kitchen area. Um, when the testimony comes out at trial, we will know for sure. Um, we have to consider it. We have to consider it. If you let me ask this question: if you were a juror on the Idaho 4 murder case, would you be able to convict with just the known information? More information is going to come out at the trial. But as I am saying these words to you, and I'm not trying to create what's called reasonable doubt. However, wouldn't this give you reasonable doubt just looking at the photographs alone? Knowing that allegedly some of the victims, they fought back. They have defensive wounds. Do you think you would be able to convict if you saw body images of Mr. Kohberger with no defensive wounds? Would that give you reasonable doubt not to convict? See for yourself. Go back. Go back. Look for yourself. We are told that some of the victims, there was a battle, there was a struggle. Do you not believe that Ethan fought back, tried to stop the attack with, for his own self-preservation, tried to block the knife, tried to take the knife? Initially, if he is not severely wounded, and when I say severely wounded, I mean um, like if his throat was not cut, for example, don't you believe he would try to fight back? That he fought back. He was probably the strongest out of the four victims. He's a male, he's athletic. I would think that he would have defensive wounds too, even if he was possibly sleeping. He would have been awoken if Zaina was attacked first because he would have heard her screams and crying. And I believe that is why he was against the door. They said that there was a loud thud. Could that loud thud would have been Ethan trying to close the door to get them out, to lean his body up against the door to keep them out of the room? When I say them, it could have been one attacker. Because from what is coming out, they say they could not open that door. They're not saying that the door was locked. That has not been said. They said they could not open the door. And technically, how would you be able to open the door if the weight of Ethan is on the other side of the door? So clearly, Ethan possibly leaned his weight, his body against the door to keep the assailant out of the room. Now, with Kaylee and Maddie, because they both were found on the third floor in the same bed, one, as the parent describes, being trapped being unable to really fight back because she's on the side of the bed that's closer to the wall. So she's essentially wedged between the other roommate and the wall. But we know that one of them did fight back, will probably have a lot of defensive wounds because she was able to move, but they both were found in the same bed, allegedly. That is what is in the probable cause affidavit, that Maddie and Kaylee are found in the same bed. So you can imagine if one of the girls was attacked first, that probably awoken the other girl if they both were sleeping. Remember, there was no activity on either phone after 2:52 a.m. So I'm guessing that when the first girl was attacked, especially in particular because the other girl was wedged between the wall, neither of them had a chance. But one was able to fight back more because she was laying on the outer side of the wall. Don't you believe if you're attacking two people in the same bed, two females, there may be some scratching, some kicking. If you look at those pictures of Bryan Kohberger, I'm not saying at all that this is um, any type of um, acknowledgement that no, he was not involved. I'm not saying that at all. What I'm saying is we have to acknowledge, we have to demonstrate that he does not have any injuries, wounds, abrasions from the beginning, from his arrest, from any video photographs that they put out, that they've taken, the media. He has no wounds. So we want to put the 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 knife in his hand as the killer, but there is no defensive wounds, no attack wounds on him at all. That is all I'm here to say, is show and demonstrate. And I think I've done that, right? Read it for yourself. Tell me what your opinion is. If you have anything to refute my opinion, please share that with me. Put it in the comments below. I will communicate with you and respond. Okay? So stay smart, stay savvy, stay safe. Enjoy this afternoon. Have a beautiful Sunday. Thanks for checking out this video. Watch some of my other videos because they're awesome. They're amazing. They're very interesting. So that's my take on the defensive wounds, the fact that Mr. Kohberger doesn't have any, the fact that the prosecutor is proceeding on as if this is not going to be highlighted, demonstrated at trial. I think we need to go back to the beginning. I've said it before. I think law enforcement needs to start over with a clean slate. I'm not saying Mr. Kohberger is innocent. I'm just saying this does not make any sense. And I'm going to start bringing this content in this manner because this trial it's indefinite. As I've said to you before, always, if this even goes to trial, I don't see a trial. I don't see a conviction coming with the facts in this case. Not at this time, no. I've always said if this goes to trial, do I feel the prosecutor should proceed? I've said it over and over again. No. Not with the facts known. I'm not saying Mr. Kohberger is innocent. I have no idea. I was not there. However, with the evidence, with the forensics, you can't place him inside of that house. You can't put the knife in his hand, to my knowledge. And you clearly can't show that he has any defensive wounds, that he attacked 4 strong, healthy victims with no abrasions or injuries. It does not make sense. I do not see a conviction coming this way. I actually see a lawsuit. I've been seeing it. I haven't said it. I see a multi-million-dollar lawsuit for the prosecutorial misconduct, for the due process violations, for so many things. But again, this is my opinion from what I have seen, what I have viewed, the media. You tell me what you think. Thanks for checking out this video. Take care. Be well. Bye, friends.